freshman year of high school, I heard a statistic that 2 out of every 3 teens will have had sex by the time they graduated. I wanted to be special and different, just like everybody else. So I decided I was going to be part of that 33.3% virgin minority. I even went so far as to make a bet with my know-it-all brother that I wouldn't have sex with anyone until high school was officially over, a sort of American Pie pact. I envisioned myself triumphantly walking across the stage at my graduation ceremony, one hand grabbing my diploma and the other flipping the bird to my brother. So for 4 years and $50, I waited. As the end of senior year approached, I preemptively scheduled my first pelvic exam. When I told my mom I was going to start taking birth control pills, she exclaimed, "Are you having sex? Who are you having sex with?" "No, Mom," I calmly explained. "I just know that someday I will soon, and I want to make sure I don't accidentally get pregnant." "Use a condom," she demanded. "Mom, I'm not having sex. When I do, I'll tell you." She was not so easily convinced, but unbeknownst to her, my brother and I had money riding on it. At the office visit with the reproductive nurse practitioner, I had never been so uncomfortable. Lying on my back, naked from the waist down under a sheet of waxy fabric-like paper, legs spread wide, feet in stirrups, cold, lubricated plastic pressing into me. "Have you ever used a tampon?" the NP said to me, like an accusation. Yes, is that bad?" I asked, thinking the worst possible outcomes of toxic shock syndrome. "Wait right there for a moment," she said, like I was going anywhere without my pants. As she rolled her chair back, popped open the door wide enough to stick her head out, and yelled down the hall to one of her nursing aides, "Can you grab the extra small speculum? Thanks." Then she changed her gloves and nonchalantly said to me, "We want to keep that window nice and tight." Did she just call my vagina a window? We didn't learn that in sex ed. They didn't talk about vaginas being too tight or window-shaped. Penises were bananas, sure. But vaginas were windows? My teenage brain raced. "Now just try to relax." I tensed up. Taking a deep breath, I threw my head back against the exam table. Looking up, I tried to distract myself by counting the tiny holes in the ceiling. I needed to get through this. If I couldn't handle the discomfort of a simple pap smear, how was I ever going to handle having sex? I had to do it. "Do it for science," I told myself. "Do it so you can have orgasms with other people. You want this. You can't have pleasure without a little pain and suffering." But I felt like I had already suffered for years biding my time in solitary confinement. All throughout junior high and high school, I spent countless hours masturbating damn near daily to keep the hormone monsters at bay. Sometimes all I needed was my right hand and my imagination, but usually I prefer the auditory and visual stimulation that came from watching porn. Flawless skin, long, blonde-haired women kissing and caressing each other in areas I didn't know you could left my crotch tingling and throbbing. I was practically nocturnal, trying to avoid the other members of my household while I quietly rubbed one out to the somewhat scrambled but still watchable adult entertainment channels of the 90s. When it was too risky to attempt to watch the Spice Channel, I would settle for having to masturbate to Will Smith during episodes of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Or Tim the Toolman Taylor from Home Improvement. I like the way he grunted. After I won the celibacy bet and framed the $50 bill my dutiful brother begrudgingly gave me, I tried several times to convince the supposedly too horny to function male cohorts to put me out of my misery and just take my V-card. Not one of them would do me a solid and just fuck me. They said I was too far gone, that I had waited so long I ran the risk of becoming a stage 4 clinger. No teenage boy wanted that kind of responsibility. I detested the notion that having sex meant automatically attaching to someone, so I convinced myself that I was holding on to my hymen out of sheer fear of the avalanche of pain that it would take to break it. If I was ever going to liberate myself from the shackles of sexual prohibition, I needed to find a way to make it hurt less. During my first year at UC Davis, I elected to take an Intro to Human Sexuality course where I was delighted to learn that the vagina can be stretched by using a series of different sized dildos. A dildo! Now I've graduated. I was no longer going to be an immature, tight-windowed virgin. I would have a sophisticated, right-sized vagina. I'd make it a door. My first purchase, a new sex partner, was a gigantic, veiny, fire engine red, Duracell-sucking, vibrating tornado of a dildo. I may have overshot. After several failed attempts to even get the head past my opening, I waved the white flag of defeat. Even though we weren't compatible, I couldn't bring myself to throw him away, and I was pretty sure he wasn't recyclable. So I hid Big Red in the top drawer of my dorm room dresser and desperately hoped no one would find out that I needed to use a sex toy to normalize my insides. In the dorms, I was sort of known as one of the sex-savvy co-eds because I was very outspoken about sex, especially safer sex, despite still technically being a virgin. Minor detail. Regardless, my reputation for being like a drill sergeant of the Sexual Safety Patrol was solidified when my mom sent me a box of 50 flavored condoms for Valentine's Day. As a show of my fraudulent fearlessness of penetration, I arranged the condoms on my door to spell out sex in all capital letters, in case anyone passing by wouldn't get that these condoms were intended for intercourse. My roommate was mostly okay with the condom door, but had me take it down whenever her parents came to visit. She was another teenage virgin, but she was very Catholic, and thus saving herself for marriage. That lasted about 3 months when she moved in with me. By the time spring break of freshman year of college rolled around, I was 19 years old, and it seemed like I was the only one left in the whole world who hadn't had sex. On my 8-hour-long drive back home to San Diego from Davis, I decided enough was enough. I was going to have sex with Kenny, an amateur rugby player and stoner film student from SDSU I had met during winter break at an ugly Christmas sweater party a few months prior. He was cute, clean, well-mannered, simple-minded, and had already had his dick inside my mouth with a mint-flavored condom, so I figured he was good enough for the real deal. Best of all, he was someone I was sure wouldn't hurt me, at least not emotionally. It would be like using arm floaties to learn how to swim in the shallow end of the pool. Nothing too deep. Unfortunately, he was also a heavy drinker, and the night we were supposed to hang, whiskey got the better of him. We rescheduled our casual encounter for the following night, and I stayed out party hopping with a group of debaucherous, non-virgin friends until the wee hours in the morning. I was one of the last girls standing when we bumped into a half acquaintance of my brother's at an after party on Frat Row. We previously sucked face exactly 3 times during my senior year of high school when he was in his 3rd year at State. He felt like unfinished business that was now aching to be checked off my list of things to do. As the night of King's Cup, Flip Cup, and just drink alcohol from your cup was winding down, he told me I needed to come see his new apartment since he had to get new digs after being kicked out of student housing. What a rebel. I swooned. "So, are you still a virgin?" he asked as we walked away from the bright lights of the party and into the shadows. "Yep," I said. "Well, that sucks." "Yep," I said again. I'm such a sucker for a sweet talker. After a series of slobbery, drunken, deep-throat kissing, we began to quickly tear off each other's clothes. Fully naked and swallowed up by near-total darkness and a turbulent sea of pillows and blankets, we landed on his bed with a hard thud. He very carefully and ever so slowly glided his penis into my vagina. I felt a wave of agony come up from my core. My insides were on fire. Automatically, I looked away like I was getting my blood drawn on the flu shot to try and lessen the pain. As I gazed out at his bedroom window, I thought about how I was glad I was inebriated. The alcohol probably helped my muscles relax enough to allow him to get about halfway inside. After a few painful thrusts, I told him I had reached my threshold. He obliged and reversed out of me. The fire was out, but the embers still singed my pain receptors. Exhausted and drenched in a mixture of sweat, blood, and other secretions, I turned over on my stomach. It was time for sleep. I inhaled my accomplishment and sighed a deep breath of relief. My face nuzzled up to one of the pillows, and with a half smile, I closed my eyes. I did it. The scarlet V that was burned into my chest faded away. I was a free woman. Not more than a few seconds after I flipped over, faster than I could react, he launched on top of me and shoved his penis into my rectum. I yelped like a hurt puppy as tears burst from my wide eyes. Immediately, my brain started to rationalize what had just happened. Maybe he wanted to try a different position, one that would hurt less. He just slipped and missed the mark. We did use a lot of lube, and the distance between the two openings was less than an inch across. Easy mistake. Maybe he thought we try anal instead. All the cool kids are doing it. What even is virginity, really? The butthole isn't a sex organ like your vagina, so it's okay. That didn't count as a violation. I searched for any explanation that wouldn't take away my newfound womanhood and render me a victim. I blacked out. Moments later, I found myself on the floor feeling around for my clothes as he aggressively stripped the bed. I helped him carry the laundry to his car as he insisted he had to do it that instant at his parents' house. This was around 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I went along, not daring to question his motives. I felt like we both just covered up a crime, and I was the only one who was going to be convicted and sentenced for life. He dropped me off at my friend's dorm, aptly dubbed Crappy Chappy, and with blasé exchanges of "good to see you" and "keep in touch," he swiftly departed. Later that day, I went over to Kenny's apartment like we planned. I felt obligated to carry on like nothing had changed. Both the consensual and non-consensual sex acts needed to stay a secret, or else he'd tell everyone how much of a slut I was and probably never talk to me again. We fooled around for a bit, then he grabbed a condom and playfully asked, "Are you ready for me to take your virginity now?" I feigned a smile and nodded. It hurt like hell. On my drive back to Davis, I called my mom to tell her I was now sexually active and she didn't need to worry because I used protection just like she instructed. She said she was really proud of me for being a responsible young woman. I left out the part about being raped.